Welcome to FX's Shogun. I'm Emily Yoshida. I was a staff writer on the show. And joining me today are Eriko Miyagawa, our producer on the show, co-creator and executive producer Rachel Kondo, producer Hiroyuki Sanada, who plays Lord Toranaga, and Anna Sawai, who plays Mariko-sama. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you.
So one thing about Shogun that has been true from the writer's room all the way to production has been the commitment toward authenticity. And I was wondering, Eriko, if you could talk a little bit about your role and the standard of authenticity, historical accuracy that we just had throughout the production.
The commitment to authenticity is something that's really stood out. I think from FX to Justin, Rachel, to wonderful cast and crew, I think everybody was fully committed and sort of ready to do the hard work, because it is hard work, especially when it comes to Japanese period show.
Luckily, we could hire the specialist for jidaigeki, samurai drama or movies, professionals, including master of the gesture. It's one of the hardest part, especially for the young actors. How to wearing kimono, how to walk, how to sit, how to open the shoji screen.
How to hold a chopstick.
Yeah.
髪の毛はこの大根のような色でござりまするか?
はて、このごぼうの方が近いかもしれませぬな。
Everything have to be, correct way, in the traditional way. For every part, we had a Japanese crew.
I've been on multiple sets where they have Japanese people for those Japanese scenes, but we had people from Japan who were the best in Japan flying over to Vancouver. That's where we saw authenticity. It wasn't just on screen, but it was behind the scenes. It was also my first time doing a jidaigeki.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I
Yes.
remember.
I was like a sponge. Like everything was new to me. Like Hiro really taught me so much, and like he's so patient. I was so scared. I was honestly so scared, because you think that people doing this would be so serious and like strict about it, but he had so much patience, and I don't know how you actually felt, but no, it was.
You've done a great
was,
job.
Thank you.
Only you could make it.
No.
No one can.
No.
On the earth.
No.
Yeah.
He's very
Really?
sweet like that.
Speaking Japanese, English, mentally a lot of layers, and then so much,
The physicality.
and then physically fighting, everything, all in 6 months.
It was a teamwork, team effort. Yeah.
Definitely. Rachel, I was wondering, because it started with you and Justin, and you have this unique perspective as an Asian American writer, what did you feel like you brought specifically to this story?
I think what was interesting about us as a writer's room, which, our room was predominantly Asian American women, we all had to understand that being Asian American, yes, it's a completely different thing than being Japanese. However, we do straddle two cultures in being Japanese American, and so that has a value and an asset system in and of itself, and could speak to the experience that someone such as Mariko-sama experienced in the story, in being both Japanese and having her system of duties and loyalties alongside her faith system. Two different ways of being.
This process started with English language writers, got handed off to a multitude of different people. There was a whole process from what we wrote in the writing room to what Hiro and what Anna were saying on screen, that, it was a lot of steps. Can you talk a little bit about all the different stages that went through?
It's written, and then I think it goes through usually to Frederick Kreins, who is our head researcher. Oftentimes it goes to Hiro, maybe myself, and then it goes to a team of translators in Tokyo. And then after that, it goes to playwright Kyoko Moriwaki, who specializes in period style Japanese, and she polishes all the dialogues so that it would feel like the right time period.
Right.
That comes back to us, and then we do our own polish, and you know, Anna would have her own notes and, you know, the way she wants to say, and, you know, many actors did. So, you know, we do our final polish. You know, we kept polishing until we rolled.
Yeah, even same meaning, we have a lot of way to say. So have to be matching for each character, each situation. So we discussed a lot. Which word is correct? Is that too classic? Hard to understand? Okay, make easier. Or, you know, mixing. So we took the best balance on set every day.
So one thing I think fans of the novel might have noticed is that we have changed some of our characters' names, tweaked them a little bit. Obviously, Toranaga is still Toranaga, Mariko is still Mariko, but a lot of the other characters' names have been changed. And Eriko, I was wondering if you could just talk about why that was and what was the thinking behind that.
Yeah, some of the names in the novel were modern, and it wasn't appropriate for our period.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure all the names feel true to the era. Rachel can speak to this more, but you know, we really wanted to preserve the essence, you know, of each character name. So, that's where Frederick also came in and helped us greatly.
Yeah, so it remained close to what James Clavell probably intended and hopefully intended, and yet anchored it in a more accurate time period. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved what they were talking about earlier about the kanji. Like, can you talk about that? I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. Not only just tweaking so that it's feels authentic. We took a step further and adjusted some of the kanji characters. Example is Toranaga. In the original, I guess, Japanese, you know, translation of the novel, Toranaga, two characters. First character is tiger. Second character was long, but Frederick suggested that we change the second character from long to eternity, longevity.
Tiger forever.
Yeah. How cool is that?
Even same sound, we can put a lot of different kanji characters, so different meaning.
Yeah. So there was so much research that went into this show. One thing I know that was created during this long research process was something called the Shogun Bible.
Where to even begin with this Bible? So Callan Puente, writer and producer on the show, she spent basically more time than the human has in a day, for many, many days, weeks, months, compiling all of the research. This Bible, maybe we'll say Little B Bible, was basically as long as the book itself, almost 1,000 pages. And it goes through funeral rites, how one would approach a palanquin. I mean, anything you can think of that would be relevant to this time and to what we were trying to do, she compiled alongside Frederick. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just amazing.
There's so many departments in the production of this show, so many parts of the art department, from the paper and the calligraphy to the wigs. And we had a very amazing wig expert on set, isn't that right?
Hiro-san, have you worked with Michi-san before?
Michi. I worked with her for the Twilight Samurai 3 years ago. And then I called her from Kyoto, Toei Studio. We had a great collaboration. We tried a lot of ways, especially for the guys, chonmage, shaven or not shaven. Top knot part is very important. And then we tried to do the camera test for a different way. All Japanese style, all Western style, Western way, and sometimes mix. So special makeup for shave and put on the Japanese traditional wig. And then we tried a lot of ways, but we finally decided to mixing version. So East meets West on my head, something like that.
Side note, some of our Japanese actors actually shaved their head.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
That seems like
Commitment,
the easy thing.
Omi,
But
Hiroto.
A little more sleep. In the
Little more
morning.
sleep, yeah.
It's a good investment, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I think it was paid off. Yeah.
I didn't know that depending on your class, you had like longer hair. And Mariko's part of a higher class, so I'm wearing a wig that goes down until my hips, and it's a lot of weight. Like,
I know. I remember you were having like shoulder pain.
yes, like my muscles really built right here. Like it was like training every single day.
The Sengoku period that the story takes place in is called the Warring States period. Combat was so important, both hand to hand, and then these big battle sequences that we have. And our stunt coordinator, Lash, was just so important to all of this.
I worked with him in The Last Samurai, so it was a nice reunion. And then we called some stunt guys who is a specialist for the sword fighting and everything, samurai ways, invited from Japan. And then we had a boot camp. So we had a class, including extras. Every day, it was so hot, summer, August in Vancouver, under the sunshine. Every day they trained a lot.
I feel like with the choreography, in the beginning, it seemed a little bit more like performative, whereas when we had a discussion, we had to make it look practical because no one's fighting to make it look grand.
Right.
We are fighting for our lives, and so there was a lot of adjustments, I think.
We have to help him.
Maybe this is what everybody knows, but I didn't know this. I just assumed a samurai was a warrior, and that's it, you know? They were so much more than that. That was just a component of who they were. They were artists. They were masters at tea ceremony. They had so much.
Sort of this way of life.
Exactly.
And poetry.
一応ねあの男の歌
I also wanted to ask about the paper. Every time you see a scroll, which are so important, the scrolls are basically like the email in Sengoku Jidai. So they become very important. And I know that there was a lot of detail put into the calligraphy and the paper and all of that.
It was mainly Callan and Frederick figuring out what should be written. And then we had a Japanese calligrapher living in Vancouver who would come in and, you know, write it for us.
Even the email by pigeon. they created their own secret code, and then they wrote down every time, different. I couldn't read, but I had a dialogue.
But even with the calligrapher, based on the character that was writing it, she would change the writing. So we would look at Mariko's handwriting, Hosokawa Garasha's writing,
Yeah,
and
that detail.
and practice her way.
The Garasha is a model of Mariko.
Right, right. And so there is actually writing that's been preserved of hers?
Yes.
So oh wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Maybe Ishido
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Mitsunari,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yep.
I keep learning these stories of just the detail and, you know, all these things that you might not even see on screen, but I think certainly for the actors probably helped you feel like you were in the world so strongly.
Like stepping onto set, like I felt like a completely different person. It was Mariko every day on set. And so in that sense, it was easier because I didn't have to do a specific exercise to get into the character. It was just, I wear the clothes, I wear the wig, I start walking like her, and it's her.
I was going to ask you if the experience of filming in order,
Yeah.
you know, every episode growing and deepening, how that felt to get to know her as you went along.
I'm so grateful that we did it in that order because it would have been totally different if we had to like do it all together. It felt so heavy. Oh my gosh. Like I get emotional talking about it.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it.
The journey Mariko goes on, I think so many people are going to be floored by
Yeah.
because it's not what you think when you first meet her.
No.
Yeah.
Knowing that she existed. Like she's based off of Hosokawa Garasha-san. She felt real. Like it really. I mean, like I'm playing the character, so I feel a little awkward saying it, but she is the heart of the story.
殿はあの偉人を用いて石堂とキリシタンの大老との結束にひびを入れるおつもりかと。
嫁子の腹の座りようをちと見習うがよい。
When we meet her, she's struggling. Like she found Catholicism, and that gave her meaning and clarity. But I feel like she hasn't found purpose yet. And throughout the series, we do see her find that. I think that was really beautiful about her. Women back in the day, they really had almost no voice. Like they couldn't physically like speak up, but we can see that there's so much agency in that she's using that quiet, like power to get her way.
You will please address me as Mariko-sama.
I feel like until the end, you really don't know her.
I wanted to ask Hiro-san. I was wondering what made Toranaga a different acting experience for you? What was special about this role?
I love his mysterious poker face. I like his patience and never give up. Those kind of complicated but very interesting to play. Yeah, more than any other roles I've done before.
What's it like now that people are finally seeing it, that it's out in the world?
So I just learned the other day that John Landgraf, head of FX, he's been working on this and Gina Balian for 11 years, I believe. And then Hiro-san came on maybe 7, 8 years ago.
Yep.
Yep. And so we're newbies at just five
5 years.
little years.
Yeah.
It's so surreal. I am so ecstatic to be sharing it and to be sharing it alongside these friends.
Well, this has been so great. Thank you all for joining us. I'm so excited for everybody to see it, and I'm sure you all are too. Thank you.
Thank you.